Over the last 40 years, scientists have been researching and using genetically modified organisms in our food supply, which has affected our country politically, socially, and economically. A question that arises often when talking about food is, how safe is the food that we are consuming? The food we consumed 40 years ago differs greatly from the food that we consume today, and it was healthier and safer to eat. GMOs, or genetically modified organisms, were created to enhance growth and the efficiency of food conversions, enhance commercially significant flesh characteristics, and control the reproductive activity of food. Genetically modified food simply means that the original DNA structure of plants has been altered or tampered with. Because DNA is the fingerprint of every organism, changes made within the genetic code could possibly lead to alteration in the quality or characteristic of the plant in question.
First put on the market in the early 1990s. Typically, genetically modified foods were transgenic plants, products such as soybean, corn, canola, and cottonseed oil. In order to get a general opinion of genetically modified products, we interviewed many shoppers.
Do you know what genetically modified foods are?
Anything called steroids. Steroids?
Yeah. Okay, the genetically modified foods are those foods who are being altered, not following the natural way of either growing or harvesting.
Sort of. You don't read very much about a really complete explanation about them, but they do something in order to make them stronger, get more product out of it, make it less resistant to pests, is all I've heard about it.
I try not to buy them.
Do you pay attention to whether the food you buy is genetically modified?
I'm not terribly concerned with
Not so much as the antibiotic stuff. As far as animals, I don't think I've seen that in the packaging.
Do you ever see labels in supermarkets that would tell you that they are GMO or non-GMO?
I haven't really looked for it, but no, I haven't really come across anything.
This is what it might look like if everything was labeled genetically modified.
Genetically modified foods are one of the most controversial topics that have appeared in the news in the past few years. The Food and Drug Administration is a federal agency of the United States Department of Health and Human Services, and they are responsible for protecting the public health by ensuring the safety and security of biological products and our nation's food supply. Genetically modified food has had a great impact on our economy because bringing a genetically modified product into a market is a lengthy and costly process. Agricultural companies want to ensure a profitable return on their investments, so they make many patents on the genetically modified plants.
this were an actress, who would it be? And let's not go there.
No, there's no such thing as an ugly person.
For like the color, I like them spotty, and for like it not being so spotty, like that's actually pretty good.
No, I think it's too fine. Like a nice soft banana.
He threw it down in disgust, declaring that it was not a good banana.
You bite through it, you can kind of feel your teeth breaking through certain parts of that really tough on the inside. I don't like that.
Smooth as fuck.
This, I'll tell you what, this is not organic.
No, this is organic.
No, it's not organic.
Let's do a size test.
Yeah, look how fat and short this one is. For sure organic. This one, not organic.
This one's clearly the organic banana.
Organic.
Yep, this one's organic.
Come on. This one's organic.
They're both wrong.
Whoa!
No! Look at you.
No! I just am only picking things based off of the opposite of what you pick. Crushing it.
I've already got black grapes.
Oh, this is gonna ruin my Monday.
It's gonna be so good though. Let's do it.
Oh
my god. Oh, wow.
Wow.
There it is.
It's one of the best blackberries I ever had.
Tastes like a cheap wine.
We have uniform blackness, smaller.
These are not as good, right?
I found a bug in this one. This one's organic. Now here's the problem. These are much better. Promise you they're not organic.
I think these are organic.
I think this is the organic one because the taste is much stronger.
I think this one. I think this one.
Organic. This is not.
And the blue ones are organic.
Oh!
Was I right? You owe me $1.
First impressions, visually, these are bigger, smaller. Must be probably not organic. Right. Probably organic. But do they think we're gonna think that? They think that we think that this one is organic, so that means they're actually this one's organic.
I eat apples because I'm supposed to, but they're not my fruit of choice.
I always assume organic apples were smaller.
Cheers. Cheers.
This looks gross. I feel like it's been out in the sun. No, it doesn't. It looks bad. It's been cut poorly.
I'll probably take one bite and put it back, like at the refrigerator in the morning time, right before you brush your teeth or pee.
The texture is like more powdery.
I can see myself eating this at the library because I'm bored to death.
It's good. Love a good apple.
Organic, inorganic.
It's the white one.
Oh, yeah. I'm always wrong!
Yay! We did it.
The moral of the story is that the organic fruits taste the worst.
Big economic fear is the risk of patent enforcement, which may oblige many farmers to rely on giant engineering companies for strains when their crops are cross-pollinated.
By AJ+. Recently, the FDA gave the go-ahead for 2 new types of genetically engineered foods: apples that resist browning and potatoes that resist bruising. These are examples of genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. Although there has been a lot of debate about GMOs lately, the FDA claims that these new GM apples and potatoes are as safe and nutritious as their conventional counterparts. So what are the pros and cons of the GMO food controversy? Well, let's first explore what GMOs are. Every living thing has genetic instructions, or DNA, which tell the organism's cells how to replicate. If you change those genes or splice them with new ones, different traits can be expressed, like adding fish genes to tomatoes, which will make the plant more tolerant to cold. And others have added genes to make drought-tolerant or pest-resistant plants. Because a farmer's livelihood is so susceptible to weather changes, famine, and blight, many use GMOs to secure reliable crop yields and profits year over year. But GMO seeds are pricey because big agricultural businesses like Monsanto have been able to maintain control over much of the genetically modified seed industry with restrictive patents. So why do so many people oppose GMOs? Well, anti-GMO critics cite health and environmental concerns. They worry that there's not enough research on GMOs and we don't know the long-term consequences of modifying the DNA of our food. Others worry about the unnatural mixing of the genes of different species. As an added concern, pesticides specifically associated with GMO crops are reportedly connected to the national uptick in gluten allergies. But on the other hand, as one Swiss report found, the real choice is between genetically modified crops and current conventional pest and weed management practices, which are known to have their own problems. Additionally, there are plenty of reports out there that don't find GMOs harmful. One study compared animals that were fed normal or genetically modified food over the course of almost 20 years and found that there was virtually no difference. However, it's important to note that many of these studies are funded by pro-GMO interests. But some of the most well-known scientists, like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye the Science Guy, have come out in support of GMOs. The fact is, plants and animals have been genetically modified through human selection for thousands and thousands of years, and that's why we have domesticated farm animals and high-yield crops like wheat and corn. But the biggest fear is now that the process of genetic modification is evolving so quickly, researchers don't have time to study the long-term effects. But besides the fear of trusting corporations with the safety and quality of our food at a genetic level, the argument against GMOs falls a little flat.
Many people are also worried that patenting these new plant varieties would raise the price of seeds so high that small business farmers in third world countries are not going to be able to afford the seeds for genetically modified crops, which would widen the gap between the wealthy and poor. As promising as the future of GMOs sounds, there is a lot of concerns about the impact it may have on the environment. Possible contamination of the environment and food chains has led to detailed consideration of how such crops and molecules they produce can be effectively contained and isolated. It is important to evaluate the potential benefits and risks to the environment and compare it to those generated by the traditional agricultural practices used 40 years ago. The main political impact everyone thinks of when they talk about GMOs is whether or not the products containing GMOs should be labeled as such. As of right now, the U.S. does not make labeling GMOs necessary under any law. People who do not support the labeling of GMOs on products claim that the FDA does not have a basis for concluding that bioengineered foods differ from other foods in any meaningful or uniform way, but people for the labeling of GMOs feel that they have a right to know what is going into their food so they can decide whether they want it or not.